go, keeper. Let's go. Let's go. Oh!
That, my friends, is the sound of victory for Detroit City FC as they pulled off the cup set 2-1 over Columbus Crew of the MLS. And on this episode of Your Daily Detroit, a special edition for Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. Fletcher Sharpe, how are you? We're talking all about it.
Finally got feeling back in my hands, which is good. It was a historic moment. If you were there, I saw a tweet, someone's like, 10 years from now, there are going to be 50,000 people saying that they were at this game. Honestly, it felt like that. Yeah, you're not going to forget where you were if you care about this club.
And in case you don't know, I'm Jer Stays, and my voice is definitely tired after last night. What a match. Like, so much emotional energy got spent throughout that early goal by Columbus. My heart sank, but it was something where Detroit City FC just bounced right back.
It was doubly painful because no one wants to give up a goal, especially a penalty. But it was an unneeded penalty. And like I love Lay. I love that he plays with intensity. I love that he goes 100%. He never half does anything. But I watched the replay of the game at least like 2 times. And I watched that moment like at least 7. And it was a bad foul, not because he stuck his foot in from behind and tripped the guy's ankle, but he did that while there were 2 defenders for Detroit in front of the guy who was going to take the shot, Aiden Morris. There are people in front of Aiden who would have stopped the ball from going towards the net. So literally, he fouled somebody in the box for no reason, and just it's the equivalent of having the lead in basketball with 20 seconds left, having no timeouts, and calling a timeout anyways.
But I also think that it is an indication of just how strong Detroit City's FC defense was the entire game. Like, outside of that goal, Columbus finally broke their non-scoring streak, but it came in a way that, it wasn't an open play.
Not really. Penalties count on the score sheet for goals scored, but in terms of feeling like a goal, if you haven't scored a goal from open play in 4 games, a penalty does not feel like you breaking your goal scoring streak. It's not a play that happened. You were gifted a chance to take a 50-50 shot at a keeper, more like an 80-20 shot on a keeper, because someone made a mistake in the box. You didn't work a great play. You didn't make some great move into the whatever. Someone made a mistake and clipped your ankle, and you got a chance to take this shot.
Now, I know a lot of people in Columbus are calling for their coach's Caleb Porter's head, but I think underrated is Trevor James. I think a lot of American soccer fans do not understand just how special of a character we have in the skipper.
I'm going to have to dub it a different name now. I'll call it the judo python technique, where, they literally just wait and absorb pressure, and then they wait for a chance to strike. And like a perfect judo toss, it's like, all right, you want to throw a punch? Awesome, I'll step out of the way, grab your shoulder softly, and flip you over my shoulder, and now you're on the ground. Like, what happened? And we talked about with their goal at Birmingham, where literally it was Nate Steinwasser putting the ball down, kicking it up to Pato, who flicked it up to Maxi, who crossed it to Antoine, who tapped it in. The first goal that came was literally involving 2 of those people, where Declan Wynn threw the ball in. Hopino got near the left side of the box, almost being taken down. Like, he had an arm around his neck. And honestly, we've been pretty critical on Hopino choosing to not stay on his feet sometimes. So I expected him to kind of just go down and take the foul. And he put his hand down and was like, nope, and kept going
out
and hit a nice little cross there. And Maxi Rodriguez ran back post, jumped up, beat their wing defender, headed the ball home. Nothing the keeper could have done. Literally, as I've been a keeper at times, and literally all he could have done is turn to see Maxi making contact with the ball. His defense let him down there, and it was a great play by Detroit to just get there and just stick it home. And on their other goal, kind of the same. Ball came in, Michael Bryant got a great chest on it and knifed into the box, and their defender tried to put him in what looked like a crippler crossface from my old WWE days and dragged him down. And the ref's like, yeah, you can't do that. That's a penalty. There's one thing I don't like about soccer at times is when people very obviously do something and they're like, I'll just act like I'm hurt. It's like, uh-oh, I gave up a goal. My ankle hurts. Uh-oh, I fouled some guy. My chest hurts. It's like, no, you clearly fouled the guy in the box. It's okay. You made a mistake, but whatever. And I feel bad for their keeper, Evan Bush, who's kind of a journeyman at 36 from Major League Soccer. He played pretty well. Even on Maxi's game-winning penalty kick, if you listen to the sound, you hear like 2 thuds. He got a hand on the ball and knocked it off the post. It just skirted across the line into the other corner anyways. So like he guessed right and got a hand on it and just couldn't keep it out, which shows you how hard Maxi hit that ball, because typically you get a hand on it, the ball's bouncing forward, not behind someone's hand. A lot of emotions. Yeah, you spend a week hearing, if you're a fan of the club, you spend a week, especially online, hearing another fan group saying how they're going to roll over your team and that it doesn't really matter and that they're the better team and it doesn't really whatever. And then you beat them and then they're like, well, we didn't bring our starters. Like, it doesn't matter. You're out of the tournament.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you brought your starters, your C team, your youth club, their kids, you're out.
And some starters did play.
Oh, definitely. Yassi Zardes started up top for them, who scored their penalty kick. Not even former U.S. men's national team player competing for time to go to Qatar this summer for the or this winter for the World Cup. His salary is worth more than the entire starting lineup for Detroit. So I know money doesn't necessarily mean that a player is like better, because I've seen some people take in some big contracts and just be terrible. But you had people, and then late in the game before the second goal for Detroit, they brought in more starters to like make a point to say they brought in Derek Etienne, Yaya Boa, who has some time with the Ghanaian national team, played in some big clubs in Europe. They brought in some players to be like, we're going to make sure we get this game and try to win it. And you know what happened after they brought in some players? Detroit turned up the pressure and brought it back to Columbus, which honestly, that's the part for me that really surprised me, is they brought in their starters and Detroit's like, that's cool. We're going to press you even more, and it's going to work.
I was going to ask you what was the key to this kind of sea change in energy, and because you and I had different picks around what this was gonna look like, and to see City pressure like that, it made me feel good about this team. And I mean, we're going to get into it down the line, but I think people need to recalibrate their expectations for what Detroit City is. I mean, not just like with the USL, but in the soccer world in general. I think when it comes to American sports, and maybe I do come at this from a different angle because, I'm a fan of Premier League, such. In American sports, we just assume the people with the billions of dollars are better. We are trained from birth that this is the way it is. And Detroit City FC is like watching The Matrix and being like, here is another way. And that is just emotionally rocking people around the country.
I mean, that's why people love the FA Cup and the Copa del Rey in Spain and whatever they call it in Germany, because that's too many vowels for me. They love it because you can see your local club go up against Bayern Munich or Chelsea or Arsenal or Barcelona and like get a victory, and how much it means for your community. And that's essentially what Detroit did. I mean, obviously some of those clubs that you see do it are like 4th division. Detroit's not 4th division, but in terms of the gulf between wages, it feels like it. Yeah, that's the reason why I love the U.S. Open Cup, is you get to watch communities that are not at the Division I level play against the top teams, and when they beat them, it shows how much it means. And not to say that it doesn't mean much to the fans of the Division I teams when they win. Like, I'm sure that it's a sigh of relief for them because, hey, we didn't drop this game. But you don't see them like cheering and like freaking out and like, oh my God, it's like, all right, cool, until they get to like the championship or the semifinals. So then you see them actually show some more passion. They beat a smaller club, it's like, all right, we beat them, whatever. But you don't get 6,000 people in a stadium like
6,121
sounding decibels just being broken as a ball goes over the line. You don't get that. It's very easy to see why a lot of people around the country were sharing clips of what happened at Keyworth. It felt magical to just witness that, and just, it was even getting home and like sitting down on the couch and opening my notebook to make notes. It still was very hard to believe that, like, wow, they really pulled that off, and they really pulled it off in such a spectacular way.
Core memory for me, 100%. A new core memory, as they say on TikTok. Now, let's get into some of the players, because I know we wanted to kind of run through some of the highlights, some of the things that people may not have realized as they're, into the game itself and just, on the edge of their seats or standing up. Reese Williams is actually ranked 4th in the USL. Does that surprise you?
I don't want to say that I thought of him as a journeyman, but like anyone who played for the Lansing Ignite during their 1 year in the USL, like League One, I kind of like, all right, well, they weren't very good, so what does that mean for you? But he went to Stumptown and like showed that he's a very quality wingback. I don't remember have any memories of him playing against Detroit, but like I've watched clips of him play against other teams when they were in NISA, and like he was a very solid player. He showed that he had the motor. He showed that he had the tenacity on the wings to like get stuck in. I didn't really know he was that great of a deliverer of a cross, but yeah, he's serving. He leads the league in crosses by like pretty fair margin. In fact, from what I heard from the telecast last night, he's completed more crosses than 10 teams in the USL Championship. And that's an amazing stat. It's a weapon to have when you can not have to deploy one of your midfielders deep. It helps Detroit so much more that they can have Maxi and Brad and whoever they have up top, Hopino, stay central and have your defender send a cross in that's accurate. Because if your wing defenders cannot cross the ball in, you have to pull someone else to do that, and it pulls people out of position. It makes your whole team have to shift to compensate for it. So when your wing defenders can send in perfect, really well done crosses, it means the world, because you can stay in your static state. You can keep everyone where they're supposed to be, and you can scheme around it. It's very helpful. It's like when your power forward or center like Dirk Nowitzki can step out and hit consistent threes, then it makes the defense have to react. They have to stretch out for it. And if you don't stretch out for it, the wingers can then cut in and then take their own shots.
Speaking of stretching and hustling, let's talk about the magical mustache of Michael Bryant. That guy, he has stepped up in the cup in an amazing way.
Yeah, his last few games for Detroit have been the exact opposite of his first two, where in San Antonio, he got on the field, looked a little bit nervous. His first home game, got in the field, first 4 touches were like that of a baby elephant, where just the ball hits his foot and just goes wherever it goes. Had a few slips, and he admitted later, he's like, I was nervous, very nervous, and I worked through it. Thank you for giving me the chance to. I appreciate him also being very transparent on social media, being like, I was nervous. I appreciate, people giving me the chance to figure that out. Yeah, his last few games, though, he's been great, whether it's been playing on the wing, whether it's scoring that goal with against Atlanta. And then last night when he came on, only for about 15 to 20 minutes, he ran the entire time. It wasn't like, I'm on here low. He's like, I have 20 minutes to play. If there's a loose ball, I'm sprinting. I'll be either the first person to it, or I'll be the first person to make contact with somebody. And like that's what you want in a sub. Obviously you want some more polish, but like he ran his tail off, and that's literally all you can ask for someone to come in late to just try to cause some chaos and do what they can, maybe not pick up any cards, but do what they can to like use their new legs to give your team life. And he did. He made a great run in the box that caused the game-winning penalty. If they had not brought him down, he probably is tapping the ball home.
He subbed for Diop. Let's talk about him real quick, because I mean, this is a hard one.
I was so excited when they brought Lay back. I loved him when he played earlier. He was kind of raw when he played for them in the NPSL, but like still you could see the talent there. And even now you can still see the talent. My problem is not just this game, but he has a tendency to make some fouls where you're just like, why are you doing that? He sometimes looks lost. And in games like this, you cannot be lost, because if you're lost against a team that might or might not be better than you, it creates a gap, and now someone else is having to do your job, and someone else to do their job, and eventually it breaks down to your team breaking down and something bad happening. And while Detroit was able to escape that, I'm worried about, I figured not having Brad would be bad. I didn't figure it would be like a big shift in philosophies in the middle.
Brad done well, right?
Yeah. I joke about Brad being kind of slow and like Lay making up for that in physicality. But for all this slowness, Brad is very much the true metronome of that midfield, and not having him there, it very much showed when Maxi was more in the attacking mode. Defensively back there, they looked a little bit scary at times.
But on the other side of that, somebody who we both respect, John Morrissey, USL Tactics on Twitter, had quite a bit of praise for Diop and really brought out his role as the passer that helped Maxi get that first DCFC goal. I saw that too. Do you think that makes up for the other side? I mean, do you think John's off the mark on that one? I only bring up John because he is somebody I do respect as far as tactics.
This is one of those things, and I use them sometimes, especially when I'm playing myself. There's two types of ways to evaluate a player. One is analytics, because numbers mean stuff, and one is just the eye test. Typically, they kind of line up, at least close enough. This is one of those rare moments where like I disagree with the numbers, because you can make great numbers to make even the worst performance look like all right. And I'm not saying that's what John's doing at all. He does a really great job week in, week out with every single team. I'm not saying Lay had a horrible game. He didn't have like the worst game ever. He didn't score like 7 own goals. But he had a lot of errors that, like, if someone was not there to clean up, could have been fatal errors.
If you're going to be the soccer doctor, what's your prescription for him going forward?
Play against hapless Hartford, that's coming up next, and then sit. Or sit him against Hartford and let him kind of collect himself and learn, and then bring him on maybe late, or maybe don't bring him on at all. Or bring him on because midfielders are going to need subs. But like I would press him in training. I would talk to him about, decision making, and I might sit him for the game and then bring him in later. The other guy who came in for you played better than you in a lot less time. I might want to give him some more time to see if he can continue that run.
Now, there are a number of potential opponents. We are kind of in a weird place because we're recording this on a Wednesday. The draw is on Thursday for who our opponents and fields are going to be. But we can make some suppositions based on geography and also based on what we know on how the process works. So looking at the table and who's left, shout out to Union Omaha for beating the Chicago Fire. I appreciate them. And I also appreciate their SG is called a parliament, which is what an owl is, a parliament of owls. As a punster myself, I highly appreciate that.
Yeah, their mascot, they are the owls. Their colors they're like black and like lime green. It's very odd. But, I mean, then again, professional soccer in Omaha is also odd. So shouts out to them for doing it. I think actually last year they were the USL League One champions as well. So, like, they're a quality side. It's not just like a fluke. They're a very solid team. Chicago's not very good, but Chicago should not be losing to a USL League One team. So shouts out to Union Omaha for showing that. I was originally going to say Chicago would be a destination team for Detroit to play, but now it's Omaha, Nebraska. It's Union Omaha. It's FC Cincinnati, who won their game against Pittsburgh, and Ford Madison, potentially, if they advance. So those are the 3 closest teams to DCFC right now. If Ford Madison happens to lose, they're going to replace him with someone else. I looked at the teams remaining. Not many teams are much closer than that. So if they do, it's going to be a team from outside the Midwest, which it sucks for whoever draws them, because I'm fairly certain whoever draws them, it's gonna you gotta hope you win the home field bid, because if you don't, then you have a long travel to go on short notice. I'm excited. I know that they try their best to not put teams in the same league together for as long as they can until they have to. So I wouldn't expect to see a USL Championship opponent. Hopefully, it's a team that Detroit can compete against again. If not, then, hopefully they can still do the best they can to represent the city and represent their own brand.
For historical reasons, do you want to see them face Cincinnati?
Yes and no. I want to see them face Cincinnati at home, just because the last time they played FC Cincinnati was in Cincinnati. And while it was an amazing goal, an amazing game they played for the first half, they got tired in Cincinnati, then brought in some subs and kind of drilled them. But at that time, they were an NPSL side, so like there was a big gap between players.
It's a whole different team now.
But yeah, it's very much not that. And also Cincinnati moved from the championship to the MLS, and it's almost like Samson getting his hair cut off, where like they just went from being, and I know it's a different style of play, obviously, but like they're players who were good before, like got to the MLS and just weren't good anymore. Like the same things they were doing, it wasn't like anyone scheming against them, just the things they were doing just didn't work. People who are good at making crosses stopped making good crosses. People who scored goals, that they were presented, started missing easy chances. Keepers who normally make saves, like, started letting in easy balls. Like, it was just very much like, well, it's like someone put like a voodoo curse on them and just things fell apart.
Okay, out of those 3 possibilities, Forward Madison, Omaha, and Cincinnati, who is your third, second, and first most difficult opponent?
Madison, Omaha, Cincinnati. I'm going to say Cincinnati, even though I think that they are very beatable, just because they do have a roster that consists of people who've played for their national teams. They have people who have played with pride, and they saw what happened to Columbus, and they're like, we don't want that to happen to us. So I'm sure they're going to take it a little bit seriously. Omaha, again, USL League One champions, not to be trifled with at all, returning a lot of their roster. And Madison, not that they're pushovers, but just compared to the league champion and an MLS team, I have to slate them third. But they're not a bad team at all. So I would not overlook them, or else you'll be getting beat to death with flamingo memes.
I mean, I appreciate their flamingo a lot, but if we end up playing them, I'm going to hate that flamingo.
Totally fair.
We talked about how difficult these teams are, but what about where they play? How is that going to work?
It is a bid system, and every round it goes up a little bit. This round, it's $12,000. So whoever puts up the bid first, to see if someone wants to protest. If they do, then they'll put up their own bid, and then they'll probably do a flip of a coin or a random draw to see who hosts. Typically, at times, the bigger team puts up the money, and the smaller team, other league, decides not to. Just say whatever, we'll save our money. Considering that Keyworth is very much a weapon against a lot of incoming teams, I very much see Cincinnati being like, oh, we would like to host. With U.S. soccer taking over the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, in the past years it's been more independent, but now it's under the umbrella of U.S. soccer. I'm sure they really appreciate DCFC shining a light brighter on the U.S. Open Cup with their win, because people always love upsets. But there is no blanking way they allow DCFC to host another MLS team at home. Just no. It's like Superman in the sun. Take the sun away from Superman, he loses his powers a little bit. They want to see if they can do it on the road. I'm sure if Cincinnati puts money up, and DCFC does too, somehow Cincinnati ends up hosting if they end up having to play each other. If it's a different team, different level, sure. Union Omaha, Ford Madison, maybe let them host them. But if it's Cincinnati or another MLS team, I don't see them allowing Detroit to host one of those.
Isn't it a coin flip, or do you literally think they're going to put their fingers on the scales?
I think it'll be like, oh, we're going to do a draw over the phone, Cincinnati. Or we'll do a coin flip over the phone. They'll just flip a coin, or they'll just take a coin, bang on the table, like, hailing to tails, Cincinnati. Like, I don't see, I know it's me just being like very backwoods, under the table, Texas football type of way, but like, I don't see them being like, okay, it's cool that we're going to because U.S. soccer is wrapped in with MLS, which is wrapped in with the U.S. Open Cup. They very much want their top Division I teams to do well. Unlike other systems where the FA Cup in England is its own thing, Copa del Rey is its own thing. Like, they prefer that the top division teams do well, but like, they're not all wrapped in together. It's not like the U.S. national team, MLS, and the U.S. Open Cup and U.S. Soccer. They're all like together. So when the MLS does well, men's national team shares it. U.S. Soccer, the federation shares it. U.S. Open Cup shares it, etc. So when the lower teams win, the U.S. Open Cup's like, look at us, we have upsets. You notice MLS made no mention of the upsets on their page. Neither did any other thing, because it's not good for their brand. So I think they'll do the best they can to make sure that their players get all the advancements they can to make sure that Detroit shows that they can do it on the road, which I think honestly against Cincinnati they can. So it isn't really it's much more of a helpful thing for Cincinnati than it is a hurtful thing for Detroit.
Well, mark your calendars. We don't have the date yet, but as I understand it, match day would be on May 10th or 11th. And the draw, again, as I said, Thursday. Before we get into our Hartford preview, because that's going to be the next USL Championship match, and I asked you this in the social video, but I want to expand on a little bit. What kind of message does this performance send to the rest of the USL Championship, where Detroit City FC, we heard it all, right? NISA All-Stars, all this other stuff. And frankly, a lot of the rest of the league has had to eat a lot of crow.
Yeah, it sends a message like, I'm not going to say that they're better than Tampa Bay, or they're better than Louisville, or they're better than San Antonio.
We don't know yet.
Or anyone else. I'm not going to say that just off rip. I can't say that. We have not played them. We played San Antonio, very different time than now. Players are still getting their feet wet. San Antonio had a keeper who was really, really great, who's no longer with the team. So, I don't know if they're better than San Antonio right now. Maybe, maybe not. But what I will say is you're not going to come here. You're not going to embarrass our team. We're going to play you tough. We're going to play you close. And it's going to be either a one goal game where we lose or we win, or we're going to blow you out. It's not going to be one of those where you come up here and run 4 or 5 goals against us. We're going to come play you tight. We're going to play you tough. And at the end of the game, you're going to shake our hands and we're going to earn your respect. Whether we win or lose, we're going to have earned your respect in that regard. And which is a far cry from what some of the fans were saying about them when they came into the league. About they're NISA All-Stars. They've won everything at a different level. This is a different beast in the USL Championship. Now it's like, they're in 4th place right now, and they're playing really well. And some people were even cheering for them last night against the MLS team. So
now let's preview what's coming up this weekend. Last ranked winless Hartford Athletic is our opponent, and I don't think the timing could be better.
I don't want to get jumped on for saying this, but I personally think Detroit should treat this game the way that Columbus tried to treat the game against them, where I know they can't do the full rotation, but I think this is a game where the Tanyi brothers, Benedict and Bosch, both get a chance to play. Maybe not start, but they get more minutes to play. I think this is where you let Francis work his way back into being healthy. I think this is where you let Billy work his way back into being healthy. Maybe they don't start the game too. Maybe you let Pato and Antoine play, but maybe you let them get a little bit of a rest. I think this is a game you let Lay try to figure out the problems he's having, or you let Michael Bryant start to reward him for playing well. Maybe you rest Maxi for a minute just to give him a chance. Probably not, though, because he's more of the creative type, and you need a creative midfielder in there to make things work. It's a game where you should get 3 points. You should be able to go to Hartford, say, hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for welcoming us to the league. Here's 3 goals. Let's get out of here.
You know, this is the point, as I mentioned before, where we need to rack up some points before we get into those teams that are a lot more of a toss-up.
You play Hartford more times in the first half than you do in the second half. You haven't played Tampa Bay yet. You haven't played Louisville yet. Get as many wins as you can, so when you go against those teams later in the season, you're not really worried about. It's like, all right, well, we can get a tie here, as opposed to we need 3 points to make the playoffs. If we can get a tie, heck, we can even lose. We're okay.
And that'll be Saturday night, April 23rd, 7 p.m. in Hartford, Connecticut. You can check it out on ESPN+. A little bit of housekeeping for our regular listeners. Of course, we do this 5 days a week with Daily Detroit. This week, we are doing 3 episodes. We are down an engineer, Randy, who is having surgery right now. We hope that he gets better, and we appreciate him very much. You will hear my voice again on Friday with Man About Town, Devin O'Reilly. All right, well, with that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.